When NHRA rewrote the rules, the entire gasser era vanished with a single decision.
You remember them, don't you? Those insane, nose in the air, straight axle beasts with the engine sitting a full foot behind where God ever intended, screaming down the strip on bicycle front tires while the back end tried to dig a hole to China. The screaming 1933 Willys, the giant-killing little Austin Anglia, the angry 1950 Chevrolet still wearing its factory fenders, even stripped-down Chevrolet Corvettes sitting taller than a monster truck. And the man who made the whole world rethink horsepower, Jack Merkel, proving a lightweight small block could destroy the big boys. We called them gassers. For one magical moment in the 1960s, they were the absolute kings of drag racing, the cars every kid with a hot rod magazine taped to his bedroom wall dreamed about. Then, almost overnight, they were erased. Gone. Not because they got beat. They got betrayed. By the very sport that loved them. Hey, it's Regal Rides, and tonight I'm finally telling the story the old National Hot Rod Association rulebooks and the magazines buried for decades. We're answering the 3 questions that have haunted real drag racers since the Winter Nationals of 1967. What exactly made a gasser the purest hot rod that ever lived? How did regular guys in their garages build cars that humiliated factory teams and ran within spitting distance of top fuel dragsters? And the one nobody wants to say out loud, who pulled the trigger and murdered the gasser wars for good? Because once you hear the cold-blooded truth, you'll never watch a funny car the same way again. This is the untold story of how drag racing destroyed its own soul, and why some of us still aren't over it. Close your eyes for 10 seconds. You can still hear it, can't you? That razor-sharp small block scream, the blown big block thunder on pure gasoline, the crowd roaring when the front tires clawed at the sky and the whole car tried to stand on its bumper. That was a gasser. That was the gasser wars at their absolute peak. Hey, it's Regal Rides, and tonight we're settling the 3 questions that have haunted real racers since 1967. What exactly turned a regular production car into a true National Hot Rod Association gasser? How did everyday hot rodders build backyard monsters that humiliated factory teams and ran right behind top fuel dragsters? And the one that still hurts, who killed the greatest era drag racing ever had? Here's what made a gasser pure magic. You started with a real factory body, the legendary 1933 Willys, the giant-killing Austin Anglia, the clean 1950 Chevrolet, or an early Chevrolet Corvette. Rules said keep the fenders, keep the doors functional, keep the original body lines. Then you jacked the front end into the clouds, shoved the engine a foot farther back than Detroit ever dreamed, and bolted on a straight axle. On paper it was still street legal. In reality it was a barely contained bomb. Any working man with a garage and a dream could build one and beat the factory hotshots. Jack Merkel proved it best: lightweight Willys, small block Chevrolet, perfect balance, no monster budget required. Genius beat money, every single weekend. The National Hot Rod Association changed rules yearly: weight breaks, setback limits, wheelbase minimums, but the racers stayed ahead. Supercharged gas, blown fuel, naturally aspirated, every combination fought under the gasser banner, and the fans went crazy for it. 4 perfect years, 1964 to 1967, gassers were the heart and soul of drag racing. Then someone pulled the plug. Keep watching. The truth is uglier than you think. Close your eyes and come with me to a Saturday night in the summer of 1966. Pick any track you want: Lions drag strip under the lights, Indianapolis Raceway Park on a sticky afternoon, Bakersfield in March, Detroit Dragway in July. It doesn't matter. The air is thick with the smell of popcorn, clutch dust, and high-octane gasoline. The loudspeaker is crackling, the bleach box is full, and 32,000 people are leaning forward because they know they are about to witness something they will tell their grandchildren about. The AA/gas supercharged final is called to the line. On the left, Big John Mazmanian's flawless candy red 1933 Willys, blown 392 Chrysler on pure gasoline, sitting so high the driver has to climb a ladder to get in. On the right, Stone, Woods and Cook in the famous black Swindler A Willys, same combination, same attitude. The Christmas tree flashes amber amber amber. Both drivers stand on it. Both front ends claw straight for the stars. Both rear slicks dig trenches you could bury a dog in. The noise is unholy, 2 blown Hemis on gasoline screaming past 8,000 revolutions per minute, headers spitting blue fire into the night. 9.02, 9.04. 155 miles per hour in the lights. The parachutes bloom at the same instant and the grandstand literally shakes with grown men screaming like teenagers. That, my friend, was the absolute peak of the gasser wars, 1964 through 1967, the 4 greatest years drag racing ever had or ever will have. By the middle of 1966, the fastest AA/gas supercharged cars were consistently running 9 flat to 9.5 seconds for the full quarter mile, trapping 150 to 158 miles per hour on pure gasoline. Top fuel dragsters at the exact same national events, the unlimited, no rules, nitro-burning kings, were barely touching high 7 seconds on their best nights. Let that roll around in your head for a minute. Cars that still had fenders, doors, windshields, and factory body stampings were only 8 or 9 tenths behind the fastest machines on planet Earth, and they were doing it with one hand tied behind their back by the National Hot Rod Association rulebook. Every single weekend the headlines belonged to a different hero. Big John Mazmanian and his perfect Willis. Stone, Woods and Cook with their string of swindlers. Ohio George Montgomery in the wicked little Austin Anglia that looked like a roller skate with an attitude. K.S. Pittman, Bones Ballow, Doug Cookie Cook, Gene Mooneyham, Junior Thompson, the Colorado Shaker. And the quiet assassin Jack Merkel, who kept showing up with nothing more than a worked-over small-block Chevrolet in a featherweight 1933 Willys or Austin Anglia body and handing out beatings like it was personal. One weekend the blown nitro cars would dominate. The next weekend Jack Merkel would run 920s on gasoline, naturally aspirated, and embarrass every supercharger in the pits. The National Hot Rod Association rewrote the rulebook every single winter. New weight breaks, new crankshaft height above ground rules, new engine setback limits, new minimum wheelbase requirements. But the racers just laughed, pulled another all-nighter in the shop, shaved another 10 pounds off the flywheel, moved the battery another 6 inches rearward, and came back faster than ever. The diversity was absolutely insane and absolutely beautiful. AA/gas supercharged on gasoline. A/gas supercharged on gasoline. B/gas supercharged. Blown fuel cars running straight nitromethane in the upper classes. Naturally aspirated small block rockets like Jack Merkel's combinations. Every possible way to make horsepower fought under the same gasser banner, and the fans ate it up with a spoon. Hot Rod magazine was 60 pages thicker every month just to fit all the pictures. National Dragster had full-color centerfolds of wheel-standing Willys and Anglias. Kids all over America tore those pages out and taped them above their beds. Every high school parking lot had at least one straight-axle 1950 Chevrolet or Henry J getting built in secret. For 4 perfect, untouchable, magical years, the gasser classes were not just the fastest production-based cars in the world. They were the absolute beating heart and living soul of drag racing. But late in 1965, rolling quietly through the back gate at Pomona, something brand new appeared that made even the toughest old crew chiefs stop in their tracks and whisper, "Well, boys, that's the future right there." Keep watching, because what happened next is the exact moment the greatest era in the sport started dying on the starting line, and nobody in the grandstands even realized it yet. Most fans think the gasser era faded away gently. It didn't. It was executed in 3 cold, calculated stages between 1965 and 1981. 3 shots to the heart. Tonight I'm going to make you watch every single one of them land. Stage 1, the factory dagger, late 1965 to 1966. It started innocently enough. Dodge and Chrysler showed up at the 1965 Winter Nationals with a handful of brand new 1965 Coronets and Belvederes that looked almost normal until you walked to the back. The rear axle had been moved forward a full 12 to 15 inches. The factories called them altered-wheelbase match racers. The racers called them funny cars, because from the side they looked like a cartoon. Weight transfer on launch went from violent to volcanic. 60-foot times dropped from 1.4 seconds into the high 1.20s almost overnight. A pure gasser, bound by National Hot Rod Association rules that said the body had to stay production and the wheelbase had to stay stock, simply could not answer that kind of physics. The factories knew it. They built maybe 30 of these cars total, but 30 was enough. They dominated every headline, every final round, every magazine cover for the rest of 1965 and all of 1966. National Hot Rod Association officials tried to ban them at first. Factory executives picked up the phone and reminded the association who paid for the insurance, the trophies, and the national event purses. So in 1966, the National Hot Rod Association created brand new experimental classes for altered wheelbase cars. On paper it looked like compromise. In reality, it was the first public admission that the classic production-bodied gasser formula was already dead at the top level. The little guy had just been told his rulebook no longer mattered. Stage 2. The fiberglass guillotine, 1967. If 1966 was the warning shot, 1967 was the execution. Mercury rolled out factory-supported, one-piece fiberglass flip-top bodies for the funny car class. Full tilt fronts that lifted like the hood of a spaceship. No more steel fenders. No more doors that actually opened. No more minimum body length or wheelbase rules. No more pretending these things had ever seen a public road. They were pure, purpose-built race cars wearing a thin disguise that only looked like a Comet or a Mustang from the grandstands. Everything the gasser pioneers had fought the rulebook to achieve, massive engine setback, straight axle front ends, radical stance, was now completely unrestricted in funny cars. Why would any serious racer keep wrestling with National Hot Rod Association gasser rules when he could bolt the same engine into a lighter, stiffer, unrestricted fiberglass shell and pick up 3 or 4 tenths instantly? By the end of the 1967 season, the writing was on the wall in 10-foot letters. Crowds that once went berserk for the AA/Gas Supercharged final were now lining up 3 deep to watch funny car burnouts. Sponsors followed the crowds. Money followed the sponsors. A competitive supercharged gasser that cost $18,000 or $20,000 in 1965 now needed $40,000 or $50,000 just to qualify, and even then it was starting from third row. Stage 3. The Economic Strangle, 1968 to 1981. The final act wasn't dramatic. It was slow strangulation. As funny cars and top fuel dragsters turned fully professional, the cost of going fast exploded. Wider rear slicks, exotic cylinder heads, clutch management systems, chrome moly chassis work, everything doubled, then tripled in price. The cars that dominated in 1964 were museum pieces by 1970. The National Hot Rod Association, chasing television dollars and factory support, quietly shifted the entire sport toward professional eliminator classes. Sportsman divisions, the heart and home of the gassers, became warm-up acts. Purses shrank. Exposure disappeared. By 1981, the association eliminated modified eliminator completely. More than 100 diehard gasser owners showed up at the 1981 United States Nationals in silent protest. They fired up their old Willys, Anglias, and Henry J's one last time and drove past the packed grandstands in a slow, single-file parade, front wheels pointed at the sky exactly like the old days. Most of them had tears in their eyes. The crowd gave them a standing ovation that lasted 5 full minutes. Then the lights went out forever. 3 shots. Factory altered wheelbase cars that broke physics. Fiberglass flip-top bodies that removed every restriction. Cold, hard economics backed by a sanctioning body that chose professionalism over passion. That's what killed the gasser era. Not time. Not progress. Betrayal. Stay with me for the final section, because the hardest truth is still coming, and it's going to hurt even more than this one did. So here we are at the end of the line. The gasser era, the real, pure, nose-in-the-sky era, lasted from roughly 1955 until the lights went out in 1981. But the golden window, the 4 or 5 years every old-timer still talks about with that faraway look in his eyes, was only 1964 through 1967. For years. That's all we got. 4 perfect years when a working man could weld up a straight axle in his driveway on Friday night, bolt a worked-over small-block Chevrolet between the frame rails, paint the name of his hometown on the quarter panel, and by Sunday afternoon be standing in the winner's circle at Indianapolis Raceway Park holding a national event trophy bigger than his kid. They didn't die because they got slow. They didn't die because the fans stopped loving them. They died because they were too damn good at what they did. Every breakthrough that made a gasser unbeatable, the massive engine setback, the straight axle front suspension, the violent weight transfer, the willingness to push a production body right to the edge of sanity, all of it got borrowed, improved, and set free in the new funny car and pro stock classes. The gassers weren't beaten by something worse. They were killed by their own children. That's the part that still keeps guys awake at night. The 1933 Willys, the Austin Anglia, the 1950 Chevrolet, those cars taught the entire sport how to think differently about traction, weight distribution, and pure mechanical creativity. Then the sport took those lessons, removed every restriction the gassers had lived under, poured unlimited money into them, and never looked back. Funny cars became the new rock stars. Top fuel dragsters became million-dollar operations. The little guy with the welder and the dream got priced out and pushed aside. The soul of drag racing moved from the sportsman pits to the pro pits, From gasoline to nitromethane, from steel bodies to fiberglass shells. And the craziest truth of all? We needed it to happen. Without the gasser wars pushing the National Hot Rod Association and the factories to their limits, we might never have gotten 8-second funny cars, 5-second top fuelers, or the incredible door slammer battles we still enjoy today. The gassers were the spark that lit the fire, and then they burned themselves out so the flame could grow bigger. So the next time you watch a funny car do a monster burnout or a modern pro stock car leave the line like it's glued to the track, remember where it all started. Remember the crazy, jacked up, straight axle monsters that looked like they were trying to fly. Remember the men who built them in garages lit by a single drop light. Remember Jack Merkel proving a small block and brains could beat cubic inches and cash. They're gone from the national event trailers now. Most of them sit quietly in museums or private collections, covered in a light coat of dust, front tires still pointed at the sky like they're ready for one more pass. But every time a set of parachutes blooms at the top end, every time a crowd roars for a wheel stand, every time a kid stares wide-eyed at a car that defies physics, the gassers are still there. They didn't lose. They just handed the torch to the next generation and walked away like true champions do. Thanks for sticking with me through this one. If you felt even a little of what we just talked about, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and share this with one old hot rodder who still has gasoline in his veins. This is Regal Rides, signing off from the memory lane we'll never forget. See you in the next one. That's the truth they never put in the magazines. The gasser era didn't fade. It was murdered in cold blood so the sport could grow up and chase bigger dollars. 4 perfect years. 1933 Willys with noses in the clouds. Little Austin Anglias that ate hummus for breakfast. 1950 Chevrolets built with borrowed tools and pure guts. Jack Merkel proving a small block and brains could humiliate the blown monsters every single Sunday. They weren't beaten. They were sacrificed. Every trick you see today, violent weight transfer, sky-high wheel stands, engines sitting in the driver's lap, started right there on a gasser starting line in 1965. Funny cars, pro stock, even modern top fuel. They're all just the grandkids of those crazy, jacked-up, production-bodied warriors we lost. If this story hit you in the chest the way it still hits me every time I tell it, if you smelled burnt rubber for a second, if you remembered standing at the fence when life felt infinite, then do one last thing for the old days. Hit like so one more old hot rodder finds this and feels 17 again. Hit subscribe and ring the bell, because Regal Rides will never let these cars be forgotten. Drop your favorite gasser memory in the comments. The car, the track, the pass, so the next generation knows what real drag racing sounded like when the front wheels were in the air and the soul was still in the sport. This is Regal Rides, signing off from the greatest era that ever lived. Front wheels up, brothers. Always front wheels up.